Welcome to another segment of Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Drexwell, Seymour. It's such a pleasure to be in your company today. I feel so great that we're back because, we've been absent for a very long time and then we came back. And I want to thank Genesis for allowing us to use the studio to have this show here until we go to our permanent place, whenever that is. And today I have a special guest. I know there's been a lot of concerns about the water restrictions. I know people probably being fed up and disgusted and some maybe not even appreciate or understand what is happening in the background. So I think it's best that we speak to Provo Water Company to understand what exactly is going on, how long this will be happening. And sometimes I write them too, but the good thing about it, I call them sometimes and I get things done. Not everybody can do that, I guess, but still. But we'll find out what exactly happening. We want to find out what the rates, have they increased their rates? What exactly Provo Water Company about? And I know that Provo Water Company is only in Provo. They do not supply it in Grand Turk and South Caicos and other islands. It's just Provo. But for those who are on the other islands, you could benefit from this conversation as well. I'm quite sure you have family and friends who are in Provo. With that said, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Robert Hall, the Managing Director of Provo Water Company. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour, for having me.
It's your first time on this
show.
It
is my first time. I've listened to the show, and I've wondered when that time would come, and so here we are.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little thing to make, to get on the show, but I'm very happy.
Thank you for having me.
I know you could have been somewhere else, but thank you very much.
Me.
All right. Before we start the show, tell the viewers about Mr. Robert Hall.
Well, I grew up in South Caicos as you did.
Yes.
When I was growing up, I remember hearing the name Drexwell Seymour, and he was a very intelligent guy who was off to school. And
so I thought we were the same age.
People wanted to emulate him. So
are we the same age?
We're not quite the same age. I think we're a little older than I am.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I grew up in South Caicos.
Yes.
And thereafter, I went off to school and traveled and came back home and got the job with Provo Water Company. I've been with Provo Water Company since 1998.
98. Okay.
In the manager's position since 2007. Well, actually, at the end of 2006.
Oh, wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very long. So, you only supply water to the residents of Provo, right?
Our undertaker's license is for Providenciales and the surrounding keys. That's up to Parrot Key. But presently, we only supply Providenciales.
Yeah, and I also know you don't supply water in Leeward because I think they have a company called Leeward Water Services.
Correct. So we don't supply in the Leeward block.
Right, the Leeward,
yes.
Association. Yeah. Before we get there, what is the current rate of water that you charge to residents in businesses?
Okay, so generally the rate is 4 cents per gallon, but there are tiers. So if you're consuming up to 1,000 gallons, it's 3.3 cents per gallon, and then the tier kind of also drops off as you get above 300,000 gallons, 600,000 gallons, and 750,000 gallons. That simply tries to give a break to high-end consumers.
Okay, I didn't know that there was a tier. I just assumed that there was a flat rate. So that's good to know that
yes.
there is a tier over 1,000 then every 6 years.
Yes.
All right, that's good. And the rates, does it matter whether it's a residential complex or business?
It does not matter. So our rates currently do not have any flexibility in terms of whether it's a commercial property or residential. So the rate is flat for across the board.
And are you regulated by the Turks and Caicos Islands government, like waters?
We are regulated. We're regulated as far as our instrument of appointment is concerned. So basically, there are conditions in the instrument of appointment that and terms that we have to meet. We, under the Water and Sewage Ordinance, answerable to the Water and Sewage Board, and under our instrument of appointment, every 5 years we're subject to a 5-year review by an independent assessor. So an independent assessor will come in and basically have an open book review with us.
Oh, okay.
And that could include anything from the qualifications of the staff to rates and the finances.
Okay. And if you were to increase your rate, you have to get permission. You just can't increase the rate.
That's correct. So the rates are governed by a formula in the instrument of appointment, and to to change the rate would need a approval from the minister on the advice of the Water and Sewage Board.
And you've never really increased your rate, have you?
The last time we submitted a rate increase, I think, was 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us how the water works. Is it through a reverse osmosis? How do you generate water?
So basically, that's correct. It's through seawater reverse osmosis. So we have deep wells that are drilled into the ground, about 150 feet into the ground, that we pull seawater basically from those wells, and then we push it through reverse osmosis plant. We add chemicals to purify the water, mainly chlorine, and some other stabilizers for pH reasons. But yeah, that's basically how the water is produced in the island.
So it's not water from the sea.
It is seawater, so it's virtually seawater. Yes, it's the same quality as seawater. It's just that we don't have a pipeline per se that goes to the sea. We draw that water from the ground.
On the ground.
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
But if you know that the makeup of, the bedrock of Providencial is basically very there are like holes and caverns under the ground that seawater comes into, and so that's where we tap into.
I got you. So it's basically more or less.
It's seawater. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I know a couple of weeks ago we got these notices and about the restrictions.
Yes.
And a lot of people was really fed up and didn't understand it, didn't appreciate it. Of course, I contacted you.
Yes,
because
you did.
I wanted to write an article about it because I didn't want to write something without having all the information.
I appreciate that.
And can you explain to us why there was a restriction and why you didn't see this coming? I mean, a long time ago. I mean, tell us why the restriction was necessary.
The truth is we saw it coming. So basically, water usage goes through a seasonal demand. So just like how we have tourist season and there's a high demand during tourist season, water tends to follow that same pattern. So we'll bottom out in September. So our lowest demand will be in September, and then demand will ramp up to in November, going into December, into the New Year's is when.
So it does follow the tourism season.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So we see a peak then, and then we see maximum water demand somewhere in March, and then it kind of stays high for a while until we get to the end of April and going into May. And then there's another peak at the end of June going into July. So we see this pattern every year. So every year we have to deal with high demand. So it's not something that we're not used to. What happened this year is that peak day demand was higher than we previously anticipated. And while we have plans in place to address that demand, those plans were not executed before that demand unfortunately took place. So we're in a situation where half of the island is supplied from the tank that is on Susie Turn. So that we refer to it as Susie Turn. It's actually on Energy Street behind Fortis's
behind Fortis
facilities. So half of the island is supplied to that tank. So basically we're always filling that tank all the time, and it's being emptied as people use it. So what happened is basically the tank was filling at a faster rate than we could fill it back up, and so that was the limitation.
It was getting emptier then
through the use, through demand.
Okay.
So it was being used quicker than we could fill it back up. Usually we fill it overnight, but obviously because the demand was so high, it was proving difficult to fill the tank to have sufficient water for the following day. So in order to prevent that situation from happening where we don't have water the following day to supply to the west of the island, we had to turn off. Restrict the water during the night time to allow the tank to fill.
Right. Otherwise, you wouldn't have.
We wouldn't have any water to supply for the next day.
And I think your press release had mentioned until April 30th, and I think today is.
That's correct.
Not I think today is the 30th.
And I wish I could come on your show today and announce that restrictions were ending today. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, we're probably going to see not as many restrictions as we have seen during the month of April. But those restrictions have to continue on a weekly basis. and we'll monitor that to see which days we won't have to do it. But generally speaking, the demand is still high, and we're still facing that problem.
Now, I know when I had to call you, you had mentioned to me about COVID. You had mentioned that you guys had a plan to do something around
Yes.
COVID time, but COVID kicked in,
Yes.
and it delayed your plan. And I know
That's
it's been
correct.
3 years now. Can you explain to us why it's taking 3 years?
So let me just go back and explain that basically all of our expansion plans are laid out in a water master plan. And we're required under the instrument of appointment to produce one of these every 10 years. We produce it over a 20-year period that's laid out in 5-year blocks. So we know every 5 years what the requirement is going to be for capital infrastructure. And that plan is very accurate. So it's based on the data that we provide the engineering consultant. The engineering consultant also comes to the island, so they visit the stats department and get information from stats in terms of tourist growth numbers, demand. We visit planning, and we talk about new developments that are coming on stream, whether they be residential or commercial. And they're using our live data to also assist in that projection. So the accuracy is very good. So we know that when they project future demand, it's reliable information. So the whole water master plan that we're using is reliable. And so we knew that the demand would reach this level. So what has happened has kind of been like a perfect storm, really. Since COVID, obviously, supply chains have been affected, and so that's affected our ability to start projects. As a matter of fact, some projects were delayed because of COVID, and that's simply because, well, nobody wants to invest during that time. So you delay those projects until you know what the certainty of the future is going to be, and so we were no different in that regard. Another thing that has happened is you would recall that in the U.S. there's the Biden plan. Actually, the U.S. is doing massive infrastructure upgrades. So that's also putting pressure on supply chain.
So your supply is limited?
We're getting the same supplies that from the U.S. where there's a lot of infrastructure happening. So that also delays, cause lead times, long lead times. So it's just been a fury of different events that have kind of delayed projects from starting. But that's not to say that we didn't see this issue on the horizon. It just so happened that it happened before we could actually put those plans into place.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to say that we're well advanced with several of those projects. One of them being the 16-inch pipeline that is coming out of the water treatment plant that is going through Kakika Street behind Long Bay Express. Okay. And then that will go towards the roundabout by Crackpot Kitchen.
Oh, so you're doing that construction up behind Long Bay Express? You see some road closures. Is that the water company?
That may be us, yes.
Oh, okay.
So the purpose of that is to just simply get more water from the water plant into the system with a bigger pipeline. So that is one of the projects that will definitely help the situation that we have now, and that will be done in conjunction with some rerouting of the water through Grace Bay, and it will overall help us with the supply going towards the tank behind Fortis.
Okay. So I have not too much for me. I know you mentioned you have these wells in the ground where you get the water from, and you mentioned about the tank behind Susie Turn.
Yes. Where
it's being used more than it's being refilled.
That's correct.
Well, how do you fill the tank if you're getting the water from underground?
Okay. Yes. So basically, the way the supply system works is that the production plant is in Grace Bay. So that's where all the water is produced. And then we store that water. So there's 2.5 million gallons of storage of fresh water that we pump out basically from there that supplies all the areas. We're constantly pumping along Leeward Highway. And so the Leeward Highway pipeline goes towards Susie Turn and fills that tank. So that's constantly happening.
And everything is done underground?
Yes.
Okay.
But as that water is going towards the tank, it's also being used by customers along the way. And then we're filling the tank as a means of getting that water from from Susie Turn towards Turtle Cove and towards Blue Hills, Chalk Sound, Five Keys, South Dock, and other areas. So that's basically how that supply happens.
Oh, okay. And I also noticed a big water structure storage next to First Caribbean Bank.
Yes.
Is that in use yet?
That is also in use, and it's actually been a godsend for us in that it gave us another option, so we were able to basically supplement the water that we're sending to Susie Turn. So we could use some of that water to help relieve the stress of
From
being
one
able to,
area.
That's correct. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now the water, I know is on the ground. You say put chlorine with it. Is it safe to drink? I mean,
Yes. So our standard of water is based on the World Health Organization standards, and it's meant to be potable water, which is water that is fit for ingestion, for human consumption. We're not allowed to put into the pipeline anything less than that. That water is monitored by our water quality department, which is an accredited department. So there's full confidence in the results that we produce. Every quarter we also send samples to independent lab in the United States for verification of the tests that we're providing. And I'm happy to say that those tests have always come back to show that what we've said is the true quality of our water is correct.
all right. Because I get a lot of I also do property management, and I get a lot of tourists asking if they could drink the water.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, I tell them I don't drink the water. I buy the water, but now as you're speaking, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm buying this water, and who I buying this water from? It's probably the same process that you are.
Well, that's correct.
Doing the water.
If you get your water from any of the local bottling companies, they're getting their water from us, and they're simply doing another layer of filtration on that water. Basically, what people don't like about the water that we supply is the chlorine.
Okay.
And we obviously have to put chlorine in the water in order to safeguard people's health. So the water is in a pipeline, so it needs to be held at a certain level of sanitization. So for that reason, it has to have chlorine in it. So that's basically what people don't like, and so for that reason, that's why most people do not prefer to drink piped water. But when we've done taste tests, the taste of our water has been rated very highly, and as a matter of fact, because it has more minerals in it, it is better for your body than bottled water is.
Yeah. And the thing about it too, as I'm thinking too, we say we don't drink the water, but we're cooking with the water.
That's correct.
So we're still drinking the water because
Yes.
we're cooking with the water, and it's in your food.
Yes. As I said, it's mostly the taste that people don't like, but the quality is good.
Yeah.
And
But do you recommend people have like some filter system at home, or?
I think for persons who definitely don't like the taste of chlorine, I would suggest that could be a route to go, and many of our customers do that. So they'll have these pure filtration systems on their tap, or basically on the there are some dispensers that also have its own filtration systems that you can plumb directly into your home plumbing, and it works.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. So those of you watching the show, he's basically saying the water is drinkable. I mean, so and basically it's the same water that we buy. It's the same thing. Of course, growing up, we drank water from the sky.
Yes.
We had our tanks.
Yes, that's correct.
In our yard, and that's how we got the water. But now of course, some people in North Caicos and other islands, they have their
do that,
wells.
yes.
And they took water from the well. And basically, you're doing this basically the same thing, right? More or less. You have the wells, and
Correct. Yes.
and then you put the chlorine with
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I know you say we should see an improvement, where it wouldn't end. The restriction will not end today, but we should see an improvement. How long do you think the restrictions will continue?
Well, I would hope persons would have already seen improvements in that over the last couple of weeks. There have been many days where we didn't have to do the restrictions, and when we didn't have to do them, we didn't do them.
I did notice that actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to assure people that, you know, we're obviously in the business of water, and it is, you know, for a utility company, it's you're trying to make sure that you give the best service that you can to the public, and it's a heart-wrenching thing when you cannot do that the way that you really want to, and so this isn't something that we're doing because we want to annoy people or we want to be an irritant. This is actually something that is necessary, and we would have only done it when it's necessary, and that's why when we're able to, we don't do the restrictions depending on, you know, what the demand has been, until we get through this high peak season and we get back to normal consumption. We're going to have to continue those restrictions.
Yeah.
And I'd like to apologize to our customers for that, but, you know, rest assured that we're implementing the necessary projects to not have a repeat of this going forward.
Because I think I saw in your press release, as I could recall, I think the consumption in March, I know you mentioned it was a very unusual month compared to prior years. I'm quite sure I saw 72 million.
That's correct. And
that's a lot.
That's a lot. And we're seeing that, you know, year on year increases growth to the order of 10%.
Yeah.
Which significantly impacts impacts the supply system. So generally, we're okay during off-peak season, and that's okay, and people will notice that. But it's when we get to the high tourist season and everyone is using water basically at the same time, and what we're seeing is higher peaks and the peaks lasting for a longer time. So that combination of both, you know, a higher peak and a longer duration of demand is causing quite a bit of stress on the system. And I just also want to reassure people that, you know, as I mentioned in our Water Master Plan, this isn't something that surprises us. It's not like we don't anticipate that kind of growth. We're obviously preparing for it. It's just that this happens to be a time when that growth just happened when you know, projects weren't fully executed.
Yeah, and those things, you know, happen. And March has been a very unusual month in Turks and Caicos. We see what happened at the airport, where there's so much congestion because, you know, flights on Saturdays. I mean, it shows that there's a huge demand going on. A lot of people are here. You know, we even see the roads. A lot of people in the country. You know, traffic is congested.
Yeah.
So there's a significant amount of people here on the island.
Yeah.
You know.
And we've, so going back to 2016, we implemented a AMI system, which basically is an advanced metering infrastructure system. And so we basically made all of the meters that we have digital meters. So we're able to monitor consumption on an hourly basis. The actual reason for doing this is to be able to control lost water. And so we've got district meters, bigger meters that would feed into an area.
Okay.
So for instance, one into the Juba Sound would measure everything that goes into Juba Sound and compare that with the individual consumption of the aggregate of the customers. So always monitoring on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, what our losses are in each area. I raise this point.
You have losses?
Yeah, we do. Every utility company, every water company has losses. There's no company that does not have losses. That's actually one of the KPIs of any water utility, what its losses are. And for us, so it's a very key number to follow because we live on an island. We know that the cost of energy is high, and obviously the cost to make water is also high. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're probably the third largest consumer on Providencial. It's probably only next to maybe the government and beaches, Turks and Caicos. So our energy usage is very high. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, so
You're talking about your light bill? Your
power bill, yes.
Your power bill, you're the
Energy,
third.
yes.
You're the third. Really?
Yes, yes. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that, so we're trying to save as much as we can and make sure that our losses is as low as possible. And I'm happy to say that we've made significant strides in that area over the last 5 to 10 years. So much so that when we have attended Caribbean Waterworks Association conferences in recent years, they have referred to Provo Water Company as the gold standard for the Caribbean.
Oh, wow. That's congratulations. That's very good to hear.
And that's just a testament of, I know we've had this conversation recently, right? When we were at the consultations for the regulator.
Oh, yes, yes.
And there's discussion about what people perceive happens in a company and what actually happens in a company. So I know people don't always get to see what, the stress that we have.
No, they only see the end thing.
Right. So there are many things that we have to conform to, and there are KPIs that we have to follow and report on. And as I mentioned, our 5-year review is a very thorough review that is done by an independent assessor. So the last review would have been done in 2018, 2019. The report was completed. It's a 200-page report that outlines everything the company does. And so on that basis, we're regulated to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Right. So, and when I say everything, they look at customer services. These things are all laid out in our instrument of appointment. So there are about 13 conditions that we have to conform to. They're all financial, they're customer related, and they're also operational related. So there are KPIs that we have to meet and submit to the Water and Sewage Board. And then we review it on an annual basis. And then we review it every 5 years by an independent assessor.
Oh, okay.
So I want to say all of that to just assure people that, we don't just do whatever we want. We're actually a regulated company, and most things we have to get permission for to do. And that includes infrastructure projects, because those projects obviously have an impact on future rates, and that all has to be approved by the relevant authorities.
Yeah. Now, in terms of your I know you mentioned the costs of operation costs can be very high producing water. Is there any? Can you use solar? I mean, do you have to go through?
It's interesting that because this is a very
is it
a topic that is it's very timely at the moment, and it's discussions that we've been having. I don't want to go too much into it, but I would say that at the moment we've been told that the ordinance does not support the kind of a project that we want to put forward at the moment. I think there are going to be opportunities to do other things, but let's see where that goes. But we are thinking very seriously about solar and the impact that solar can have on the reduction in rates. As a matter of fact, within our group, there are things that we've already taken on with respect to lowering rates. So solar is something that we're already using on our buildings.
Okay.
We're also moving towards electric vehicles. Currently, we've got about 8 electric vehicles on the road as we speak right now. So that's the direction basically that we want to move in. So solar is definitely going to be a part of that future, and I think it's definitely going to be a part of the future of the Turks and Caicos. There's no way to avoid that.
And if you put all these measures in place and the cost of operation has reduced, will you reduce the rate?
Well, that's the whole end game to pass on those reductions to the consumer. That is what the driver is. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now tell us about the water. I know you mentioned you have these districts and you monitor the water losses and stuff. Now tell the residents too that they could also monitor their water, right? Because they could monitor their water consumption, right?
Well, I mean, it's a really good point. So, and we've provided some tools to help assist with this. So we, because we have an AMI system, we can make all of this data readily available to our customers, and we do through our portal and through our app. So persons could go onto provowater.com, and they can monitor their own consumption. We've actually put out a video to explain how this can be done, so that people can use the information that's available to them. But yeah, so this is an area that we're looking at. As a matter of fact, in another week or so, we're going to be celebrating Drinking Water Week.
Oh yeah, that's something you do every year, right?
We do this every year, and one of the emphasis is going to be on a panel discussion that is going to involve customers who've had leaks in the past and customers who we've helped with leaks, and sort of have a discussion around how we can assist customers in this area. Because it is vitally important that customers also play a part in their own water conservation, and it's important because obviously the water that is lost goes into the ground, basically, right? So it's not going to any beneficial use.
Good purpose.
That's right. And so the more that we can save, the more that we don't have to produce, the less energy we would have to use. And that's the whole reason why we want to make sure that our losses are as low as they can be.
I understand.
And we want that same pattern to follow through to our customers.
I mean, one thing I do appreciate, though, I will tell you, the Pro Water Company, is that you get this notification when your water usage is higher than normal.
Yes.
They will say you'll get an email.
That's right.
Saying, and I appreciate that. But of course, I still get billed for it because sometimes it's not your fault. It's from our end, and so you have to call someone to detect.
Yes.
Where this is coming from. Well, but I know that you do send notices out to customers advising them when there's a higher than normal usage in their stuff.
So there are two kinds of notices that we will send out to a customer. We'll send out a notice that is based on high flow, so that's a flow that's above 180 gallons per hour. And we'll also send out a notice that's based on continuous flow. So if your consumption never goes to zero over a certain period, then obviously something is wrong, because your consumption should on a daily basis go to zero, particularly at nighttime when you're sleeping and you're not using water. It should be zero.
Right.
And so if we see consumption still happening at fairly high rates at those hours, we know that there is a leak. And so that's how we're able to give people the advice to say, look, we think that there is a leak, and we'll send tips in terms of what they can do to actually try and find those leaks.
But you don't normally come out. We have.
Well, we don't have the capacity to help every individual who has a leak, and so for that reason we don't provide that service at the moment. But we do know that the system is reliable, and 9.9 out of 10 times when it says there's a leak, there's likely a leak, or there's some kind of losses happening, and we've been able to help many of our customers as a result of that system.
Okay. Now, what is the deposit? What is the deposit fee? Someone wants a service, you pay a deposit, right?
Yes.
What is it?
So the deposit really depends on the size of the service that you're going to get.
Okay.
If you're just going to get a regular 5/8 service, this is like the normal residential size meter, that deposit is going to be from $250 to $350, depending on whether you're resident here or not.
And what is that deposit for? What was the purpose of that deposit? I'm asking you to get to another question.
Yeah, so it was actually from a financial standpoint. It was considered that there was a risk of us having the infrastructure in the ground and potentially not having any cover on that risk if something was to happen to that infrastructure. And obviously we replace it if it's damaged. So even though it's your meter, Provo Water is still responsible for placing that infrastructure if it ever gets damaged. And that's what we do. And you are not charged for that. And that happens basically on a daily basis. We have vehicles that run into our meters and knock them out, and you call us and you tell us, my meter's been knocked out, and we show up and we fix it, and you don't receive a charge for that.
I see.
So that's absorbed by the company. So as a kind of means of offsetting those kinds of costs, we charge a deposit for that infrastructure. The deposit is a refundable deposit. So if you ever decided that you wanted to leave the company, and there are people who do for various reasons, people leave the island and they decide, I'm going to live somewhere else, and they say, okay, Provo Water, can I have my deposit back? And we say yes. And we write them a check for the deposit.
So it's not a deposit that's held because if you were to go into bad debt, we could apply. It's not for that use because someone has just put a question.
It is not for that use, and just bear in mind that every account must have a deposit. And so if you use your deposit against your bill, and the only case that this would happen
when you
would
leave,
be
though.
Correct.
Yeah.
You'd still have to replenish that deposit.
Okay, because there's a question, right? Okay, let me read this question just how it is. Why would your company disconnect a dialysis patient account for $99 when your company is holding a deposit of $250? So they're saying the account is less than the deposit amount.
Right.
The amount due is less than the deposit.
Right.
Why would you disconnect them?
Well, I'm sorry if this has happened to a dialysis patient. I'm sorry, it's not our intent to do that. But also understand that we have an automatic system which does things kind of automatically these days. And so if someone is disconnected, our system doesn't know whether you're a dialysis patient or whether you're, Mr. Seymour or someone else. It just sees an account that is in arrears, and it will take the necessary action. So that basically is how it happens. So I'm sincerely sorry for that situation. The fact that you're in arrears doesn't mean that you're. I just explained what the
deposit is for.
Purpose of the deposit for. It's not to offset your bill, and if you wanted to do that, then that kind of indicates that you're terminating your service. So it's not. That's not the purpose.
That's not the purpose of the deposit. Okay, all right. So it's for.
I know people wonder sometimes why do I get cut off for a certain amount. We've tried to make it very easy for people to get notices to remind them that their bills are due, and so for that reason we tend to bombard people almost with notices just to keep them informed and remind them that you've got a bill due. So we want you to pay it, and we try to make it easy for you to do that. And so you can pay your bills online. You can pay it through your bank online. You can pay it through our portal, or you can pay it through our app. So
or you can go by IGA, right?
You can go to IGA as well and pay your
in
bill.
Provo.
That's
and
correct.
Grand Turk, I think.
Well,
right?
we only supply Provo.
Oh, that's true, not Grand. Yeah, but someone in Grand Turk can pay for somebody.
That's correct. Online. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know about the water deposit, because I'm one of those people too that's be thinking, man, but I do get notices, and I think maybe once I got disconnected, but it was sorted out.
I've been disconnected before.
You?
Yes, I have.
Well, that's because the system doesn't know who you are, as far as you're concerned, once you haven't paid.
And I appreciate that, because it shows that it works. And so we've been trialing this kind of new technology in a prepaid system. So I'm one of the guinea
So you have a
pigs.
prepaid system?
Well, we've been trialing that system. It's never been rolled out publicly, and there are reasons why we haven't done that.
But you're looking and you're trying.
It's certainly an avenue that we want to be able to address in the future, to make available in the future.
Yeah. And I know water bills are normally due around the third week. And I know the bank sometimes, even though if you pay directly, you might get it right away, right? But if you pay through the bank, it doesn't come until the next.
It could take a few
2 to 3 days
through the bank.
But I think that's
for that reason, we also advise people that if you're going to be late, let us know that you're going to be late. But we still try to make sure that if we're doing disconnections on a Tuesday, for instance, we would make sure that we have accounted for all the deposits that would have come in over the weekend, so we're not cutting off people who would have paid over the weekend. To be honest, we go to the extreme to make sure that we're not cutting off people.
Yeah.
If we cut someone off, it's because they have been delinquent in paying their bill.
Oh, okay. Now, is water accessible? I noticed I read something a week or two where I see in phase 2 where they're getting city water.
Yes.
So does that mean then that it's not really available everywhere in Provo yet?
There are some areas that you will find city water is not available. Those generally tend to be the extremities of the island. So there are areas where, we just haven't put in a pipeline as yet. But
the majority of Provo,
yes,
is pretty much
Provo is covered. Yes,
pretty much accessible.
That's correct.
Through the water.
And has access to water. Yeah.
Right. And do you when you're applying for water, do you have to appear in person? Can you apply online?
You can apply online. That's correct.
As long as you have your IDs and.
Well, the process starts with you contacting customer services. So at the customer services at provowater.com, and that would then initiate an email just to confirm, first of all, that your email address is correct, so that we know we have an open channel of communication there. And then we'll send you the information that you need to get going with your application. It's a very straightforward process.
Okay. And if I know most times you would send notices out when there is a water outage or there's a problem. But if there is a situation, and I really have to apologize to Ms. Kanisha, I called her very early one morning. I think I woke up and I tell her we have no water.
Gets lots of those.
I have no water in Chalkson. She probably sorry I got a phone number, but I got it. And I can tell her I got it, but I got it. And I called her very early in the morning because I didn't see any notice that there was a water outage in Chalkson.
Yes.
And then she called me back, and because I'll be honest with you, I called the number. I googled the Provo Water Company number. I called, and when I called the number for emergency, it just say a message came on. I can't remember the message said. It's like, anyway, it was no one answered that phone. A message came out on.
Right.
And so I said, well, this is early. I can still call Kanisha. But that number doesn't work. Because I called that number. If there's an outage and you're not aware of it, I know you're monitoring your systems, how do we get that message to your company?
So our emergency response number is 231-0705.
I dialed that number.
Yeah, and most times, well, all the times it should be answered. It could happen that you could have cases where it may go unanswered. It depends. So it's actually being monitored by a person. It's not an auto response.
Okay.
So it could be times where the emergency response person is already on a call.
Maybe that's what it was.
It could be the case. I don't know. But yeah, generally, we tend to respond to all of the calls that we receive. Again, this is something that is a part of our KPI, so that we have to do that, and we have to record what the call was for, and how our response time has been for that caller.
All right. I want us to go back again about the restrictions, because there's some people who just joined the show.
Yeah.
I want to go back over. I want you to explain again why we had the restrictions and how things are progressing so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, the basic reason for the restrictions is generally because the demand to the west of the island has been higher than our ability to refill the Susie Turn water tank overnight. So Susie Turn water tank is the supply for generally the west side of the island. So everything going from Turtle Cove to Blue Hills to Chalk Sound, and so the way it happens is that tank tends to fill overnight, and then people will use the water during the daytime. The tank will empty during the daytime, and then fill again overnight, and so that pattern continues. And so what has happened this year is that the tank was emptying quicker than we're able to fill it up overnight. So that puts at risk being able to supply that side of the island during the daytime, which would be horrendous for us and horrendous for customers. So our option there was to simply, not simply, but our option there was to limit the outflow from that tank happening overnight, so that the tank could fill and make water available for users during the daytime.
Yeah.
And so that's basically how we ended up in a position where we have to do restrictions. I also went on to say that we do have plans in place, and not just because this has happened, but we have plans in place on a rolling basis to make sure that we can address high demand, emergency situations, and also peak demand. And it just happened that the demand happened ahead of our completion of some of the projects that we've had earmarked. And as for the delay, so we've had a series of incidences that have resulted in delays in those projects coming out of the pandemic. So supply chain issues that have resulted in materials not shipping in time. Some projects were obviously delayed because of the pandemic. And then we've also had manpower issues. And by manpower issues, I mean, we know that the projects that we have to execute are more than the capacity of the water company to fulfill. So for that reason, we need contractors and subcontractors. And if you've been paying attention to construction in this country, you would know that it's hard to find a contractor.
It's very hard.
Right? And because there's such a demand, that's driving up prices. So contractors are charging an arm and a leg for jobs that would have cost half the amount.
One arm and a leg.
Years ago. So it's not easy to find a contractor. And if you're going to get a good contractor, that means you're going to have to pay top dollars, and that impacts the budget for projects. And you can't just pay a contractor just because he can charge a higher price, because ultimately the consumers are going to feel that, and you don't want to pass that cost on to consumers. So we're also trying to make sure that we're managing our projects cost effectively. So there's been like a number of issues that have caused these delays, but rest assured that we are advanced with the projects that we are working on, and there are basically 3 of them that we're going to address these restrictions quickly with, and one of them being the new 16-inch pipeline that's coming out of the water plant.
Right.
That's well advanced, and we're going to continue that until we finish it.
Right.
There's also some restrictions along Leeward Highway. So when this pipeline was installed back in 1998, I think as a cost-cutting measure, they kind of reduced the pipeline size at certain junctions in order to put in smaller valves. And so those valves are causing a restriction now. And if we remove those, we can get a greater volume of water through the pipeline.
Okay.
And so that's one of the projects that we have on stream. Well, that is in progress.
Right.
The third is so there's a middle booster pump station that we have that is near Caker's Lodge, near Pablo's Laundromat.
Okay. Yeah.
So that booster pump station is what kind of helps the water go towards Susie Turn.
Okay.
So we're also proposing to upgrade that pump station once we would have completed the restrictions, remove the restrictions. So those are 3 projects that immediately would help boost the water supply. And we're working on those as we speak. There are also future plans to improve how water is supplied across Providenciales. We have a massive CapEx plan that includes a second desalination plant on the northwest side of the island in Wheeling that would supply back towards town. Blue Hills is year on year been the highest growing area, and obviously that's where land is available, so that's where people will continue to expand into. And our future plan is to put a second desalination plant that would supply that side of the island, and we would allow the Grace Bay plant to supply the eastern side of the island up to Turtle Cove.
So you split it up.
That's correct. Yeah.
Now I know when we got the notices, a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, was upset. People
should would rightly be. I mean, if you don't have water, that would upset you.
Yeah, because water is a necessity.
Yes.
We need water. Like speaking to other, I know a lot of times we like to compare to other countries. Are you aware of other countries?
Oh, this is common in other countries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. water outages are like, I've lived in other places and I've experienced water outages. Persons who reside here from other countries also have shared their experiences with water outages in their country of origin. And so we know it happens, and it happens in other places for hours on end, and you can go a whole day without having water. I think one of the things I notice about Providencial is because we cater for a very high-end tourist market. There's quite a high demand for services and reliability. And so people have come to expect that reliability to be very, very high.
Yeah,
and when they
consistent.
don't, yes, and when they don't receive that level of reliability, it's like, it's the biggest inconvenience. And so you can understand that people expect us to uphold a very high standard.
I will say this, especially to people watching the show. We submitted some plans for a project, and I was trying to get out of this building a tank. I said, man, why do we need a cistern? Why? When we have pro with a company. And I will tell you, I since getting that notice a couple of weeks ago, I got to appreciate the importance of having a backup.
That's correct.
Because a tank, I think we should continue with the cistern, even though pro with a company has been reliable. And I think a lot of people, I think you should have that backup. And I didn't appreciate the planning department saying, oh, you need a tank.
Yes. Because
I said, man, what do you need a tank for? And I think it's important to always have a backup as well.
Yes. And so you will find that the persons who are most inconvenienced will be those who do not have a backup. So where they're their only supply. And so there's nothing else to fall back on. And so that would be more inconvenient for those persons. But we know that there are others who, they haven't felt it because they had that backup. They could easily just switch their tank and continue using water. So,
well, I mean, we've come to the end of our show, and I just want to.
So soon.
Yeah, an hour is up. I just want to thank you, and I hope it brings clarity to a lot of people and appreciation, understanding of the challenges that you face, and going forward, we should see an improvement. I mean, honestly, we have seen improvement. The restrictions is not as restricted as it was in the past. That's pretty good. I mean, I normally get up very early in the mornings, like when I have to go to dialysis on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I have to get up I leave my house very early, and the water's not on. So I go to dialysis not having to take a shower. But I've seen improvement, and I just want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And to me it was informative, and I hope people understand. Of course, you can never please everybody. People say they're paying for a service, they want it when they need it. So thank you for clarifying a lot of things, a lot of questions and concerns.
Thank
you. Do you have anything that you want to say that we have not shared or discussed so far?
Well, but maybe not said, but just to reiterate what I said earlier. I mean, we're sorry that we're in this position, and we're all in this position together. The restrictions also affect the very people who have to carry out the restrictions, and so whatever you can do to help in terms of water conservation, whatever a customer can do to help would certainly be helpful. And then again, just to say again that in another week or so we're going to be celebrating Drinking Water Week, so it's another opportunity for people to come and talk to us, and we're happy to talk to people. And
where is it going to be?
We're usually out in the community. We're usually set up at IGA.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got other events involving the schools, and then there's the panel discussion, which is another opportunity for engagement with the public.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. And you've been watching Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Drexwell, and my guest is Mr. Robert Hall, Managing Director for Pro Water Company. Thank you.
Thank you.